Oh wait, that's not enough music. Bring it back. So no surprise, there is a pretty big footprint for this base. The TC will go in one of these triangles, which covers the main part of the base. We have 6 surrounding TCs, each of which have an arm that adds extra honeycomb to the end, and the inner and outer peak downs. The TCs get built off of these squares, which I will show you how to do. So we start with a classic circle footprint. You can start with stone, no problem. Metal is just the final material used. We can put the TC in any one of these inner triangles, so I'll randomly choose here. For proper placement, place a wall here with TC centered on it. Now obviously we need to build a starter base around this, but this section is just to show you how to get your externals in the right spots. So to do that properly, we want to look out from any square and build out 10 squares. I like to build 2 and break the first so that the TC doesn't overlap. The TC goes in the 10th one here, so break off the 9th one again for the TC priv. We have to enclose this on all sides but one. Each of these TCs can be used as a flank base later on, so I'll put a wall frame in the front. After the TC is in, we'll want to break all of the twig leading back. Now you can upgrade these at your own pace, but the final state of this is sheet metal with a garage door. To do the build back, it's easiest to start inside here. We want to build back 12 triangles in this kind of half moon pattern. Put a square on the end, followed by a triangle, and a square on each diagonal with a triangle on the tip. Now what we have is one of the arms that surround our core. Once again, all of these pieces in the final build state will be sheet metal. To finish the footprint, we have to do the same thing 5 more times. Once you have that done, it should look like this. Now I want to be very clear. You do not have to build all of this stuff right away. However, building out to the TCs needs to be done while your starter base is still the circle shape. Now let's get into some building. We can add a triangle and 2 raised squares for our entrance. Next we have to enclose our TC because it's kind of in the open. We'll add a wall on all of the edges except for the last one here and put it here instead. Follow this up with a roof, a wall frame, and a garage door. Our TC is secured now. The second step is the core. Starting at our entrance, we can add in our first layer of walls around the entire edge. Once we're back at the entrance, we'll double stack half walls for the bunker entrance. And now we have this kind of fish pattern. From here, we add in squares on top of each of our future loot rooms. These will be drop-down loot rooms, so we need to immediately put in our second layer of walls around the edge. Now if we locate our entrance, we need to place 2 walls, both with the hard sides facing it. Eventually, we want a frame and hatch to go here, but for right now, let's just add a normal entrance. This is just so we could be safe from the outside. Equally as important as our entrance is this triangle here. This will be our way up and our roof access for now. So let's build up the same thing, with the only difference being we want a half-height floor through the middle of this one. We'll put a frame for later, but a door is good for now. With those complete, our next step is to close off the rest of the ceiling. Last thing we would want is a heli landing inside here right now. Now I don't know about you, but I always like to put a door at the top in all stages of a build, so that's what we'll do. When you're on top, you want to locate this square, since this is the direction the door will face. With the roof done, if we have a look now, we have the basic framework complete. The next thing we need to work on is our entrance. If you're facing outwards, we want a single door and a double hatch on the right. We can close the rest, and for the second foundation, we'll just use half walls to cover it. Now front is safe for the time being. If we come to our door path, we'll want a hatch here. You can use a furnace if you have to for now. Now if we follow our door path in, we'll drop down in this first triangle and place a furnace so we can get back out. In our TC room, when you have them available, we can add in our drop boxes. I'll sheet metal this wall just so you can see which one it is. You want the first one to face out and the second one to face in. This is a great way to add on a ton of raid cost. If we come back around to the inside, we can place our window frame. This room will change over time, but for right now we need sleeping bags in here. We can actually fit 8, which may or may not be enough for your group, but there will be many more spots as we go. My apologies, I may not have been clear enough about this. This room with the TC is a vault room. We'll obviously have storage in here later, but the main point of this is when you feel it's the time, you can seal the room with this wall. What makes a vault super strong is you can upgrade all the walls as you go, making it more and more expensive to raid as time goes by. One thing to remember here is that it has a ceiling too, which is the inner circle of triangles up here. Upgrade this accordingly. Before we build the loot rooms, here is the basic idea. We'll build hatches on each of these triangles to drop down, and each of these triangles will attach to a loot room in the squares. All rooms are identical except 2. This one is a double room, and this one has our drop boxes. The execution on this is pretty straightforward. Starting at the entrance, we want to have the same wall facing the same way above each of the loot rooms. While we're here back at the entrance, our level 1 and then our level 2 can go right into this spot. Back to the loot rooms, we'll want to add in a triangle floor frame into each one of these holes. Once you have the triangle hatch blueprint, you can begin adding them in. When you place them, it's best that they open towards the outer wall. Once again from the entrance, we want to jump down into here. Now this space needs to be separated into separate loot rooms, each with a drop down chute. We can do this easily by counting 1 square and 1 triangle and then placing a sheet metal wall after. Once you get to this last one here, you don't want to add a wall. This will be a double loot room instead. Reason being, if we put a wall here, we are wasting precious space in this square. Once you're up to this point, we can begin adding in the loot rooms. They are all identical in preparation. We'll first add a half-height floor with a wall frame in front of it. The garage door can face either way, but this way will hide the boxes. Now the layout looks like this when it's finished. All the loot rooms should have the same layout, except when you come across the one with the drop boxes. This one needs to be modified in the following way to allow access to them. If you can figure out a better layout for this top shelf, please let me know about it. The final exception to the loot rooms is when you build this double room. Now, not too much is different here though, as it literally is just 2 of the same things next to each other. One small detail I'd like to share here is since this hatch opens this way, they can be used as a peek down if raiders are going through your walls in an online. It won't be the deciding factor, but it is good to know. Now for upgrading and adding honeycomb. I suggest adding honeycomb before upgrading, but I will upgrade first to show you exactly why. If we come down to each loot room, we'll want to upgrade both of the outer walls to HQM. Now this shows from the outside and makes you look very rich. It gets even worse when we upgrade more. Above each of the loot rooms, you want to upgrade these 2 walls to sheet metal and the one above the hatch to armor. The rest can get sheet metaled. Once you repeat this step for all the rooms on this floor, it'll look like this. Then you can go ahead and upgrade the center circle. Now upgrading first is a bad idea because from the outside, this looks absolutely like the juiciest base on the server to raid. So how do we add the honeycomb then? First, we'll add a triangle on each side of the base. Next, we'll go around with triangles on the first floor. All of these pieces should be sheet metal. We'll come back around, adding all the walls last. When you're done, the base should look like this. The second floor is exactly the same, except for a couple things on the front here. From here, we want to upgrade this half wall and then the top. On this corner, we want to add a wall, a full wall, and then this half wall this way. Now we jump up and we want to finish this top section with half walls. Next thing we could do is bring up all of the sheet metal triangles up 1 level. When you're on this final one, the final step will be to simply cap them all off. Once again, all sheet metal. That's important. Now if we have an aerial view around real quick, you can see our base is very strong and has this kind of star shape to it. With all that work being done to the core, the entrance still being stone needs some upgrading at this time. The foundations on a stability bunker should always be HQM, and the rest is okay as sheet metal. The front part of the bunker here also has to be armored. Now entrance is finished, but don't forget to upgrade this one like I did. Our next addition will be our third floor. If you come out of the roof exit, we want to build 5 walls off the right side and come in 1 on the end. We'll want to leave a 1 wide gap and close the rest. This gap will be a way to get up to the roof and also to enter the inner peak down. We'll place a hatch to go up, and we'll have to wait a little bit for the peak downs, but we can add the ceiling now. Our third floor will be for some furnaces and more loot rooms, and it's also more honeycomb on the top. We'll place these 2 garage doors just to kind of section us off from the outside for now. Now to separate this floor into proper loot rooms, we want to start adding full walls. We want to basically build around the triangles with the hard sides all facing the triangle. We can do this for all of them. Now we can give each one the normal loot room front. When it comes to placing the garage doors next, there are 2 spots that don't lead to a closed room. You want these to face the other way. The rest can all face the inside. I guess at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter which way they face. I'm just a little bit picky. Now once again, this loot room has been used many times in this base and on my channel, so here they are. This should definitely be enough storage for now, but there will be more later. One thing I always have to do is come up and add on new roof access. The door faces this triangle. Our core is just about done, but before we go and add in all the crazy stuff with peak downs and multi-TC stuff, let's first go ahead and solidify our core just a tad bit more. The first necessity, which goes all the way across from our level 2, is our level 3 workbench. Once that is good to go, the next thing we want to do is pretty much mimic this door and half-height floor thing we got going on here. We want this to be added on all of these sections. We will add the doors in later, but the main reason for these now is to section off the second floor a bit more. It is expensive to raid in here through the walls, but if you're building a base this big, you already know the dangers. These half floors later will be a great place to put turrets because they cover all of the wall raid angles. Next we want to surround the inner circle with wall frames, which will all get garage doors. Now in most circle bases, people section off this circle, but since the whole thing underneath is a vault, we can get away with just upgrading it to HQM. As I always say, vertical and horizontal upgrading is always the way. So next we'll come into the vault and upgrade all of the surrounding walls to HQM. This is for the horizontal raid cost. At this point, one wise upgrade would be armoring the ceiling too. Think about the top-down raid. You wouldn't want people to be able to raid through 1 stone, 1 sheet metal, and 1 HQM floor to get into the vault. When if we come out here and take a look, the wall raid cost is 1 sheet metal, an HQM wall, a garage door, and another HQM wall to get to the same spot. Well, it's about that time to start building up our externals. The first decision you have to make here is where you want your entrances to go. I like to put one here, so with the TC behind me, I need to put a wall frame here and then another one right here, which will be the entry point. Now you can have up to 6 entrances on this base if you would like. For me, I usually go for 1 on each side, totaling 2, so I have to come out to the other spot I use and build the same 2 frames. Once you have all your frames marked out, you can add walls around each arm in all of the available spots. Remember to cap each level off with a roof. When you go to place the second level, you can easily get to it by coming out of your roof exit and jumping over to it. You pretty much want to repeat what you just did on the first floor, minus the wall frames of course. If you build it up the same as I show here, there's an easy way to jump out at the end for the third level. The third floor is a little bit different, as we'll be adding a wall frame into one of the spots. We need this now because there will be bedrooms throughout these later. The frame goes on this square, which will secure a bedroom here later on. Once you have this complete, you can start to see what will happen here when we add more of these sections. We'll add in some cool gaps soon for the inner peak downs around this area. Now it basically comes down to repeating this 5 more times until we have this. If all you need is a still image to build the next part, here it is. The easiest way to build this is by coming out of the roof exit and building a triangle onto every edge. Next, starting at the same spot, we'll build a square in between each one like this. Now most of it is filled in and we only have these little diamond shapes left. The next part has to be done exactly like this. When it's done, the gap should be the same as this. So MGE from the future here when the roof is already built, but I realize that that is a huge project on its own, so I'd like to show you how to finish the main parts of the base first. The first is the entrances. On each one you want to build 2 triangles with shop fronts. Put a single door on the front here. Now with the shop front you have to be careful which one goes in first. As seen here, they can block each other. Once we put the front door on, we add the 2 double doors after so that we get this nifty airlock. After we place the roof, we want to use 2 garage doors for the entrance in. This door path is now more expensive to raid than the honeycomb, so it's good to go. Now inside of the HQM vault, we want to add some storage. Vending machines are straight up the best option here. First, let's remove the sleeping bags. You will be able to place 5 bags back in here after. The first vending machine gets placed next to this wall frame. You must start at the frame to make placing all 8 of the vending machines much easier. Remember to disable the broadcast feature when you place vending machines, or your base will be advertised on the map. I like to rotate these before I place them. Now you can get 2 next to each other on each wall, except when you get to the end walls where you can fit 1 more. With 8 vending machines being used here, that is the equivalent of 8 large boxes of storage, which is pretty solid for such a small space. Once you get the final one in, you can get the sleeping bags in this orientation. Once those are all good, the vault is pretty much complete at this point. So now on the second floor next to our entrance, we'll add in the doors I said we would earlier. This is great for sectioning off the loot rooms from a wall raid. Most groups will probably replace all these with armored doors, but the 2 that matter the most are the ones that go here at the entrance. Although a door raid on this base is very unlikely, strengthening the door path is never a bad idea. On our third floor now, we want to make sure that we add a door here. You could use double armored doors here if you want to. Next we'll add the doors onto our bedrooms, which I will show you how to build right after. For our bedrooms, there are two variants, depending on how many players you need to accommodate. The first one has one bed, which will allow up to 6 bedrooms. Now the second one is pretty interesting. It holds 2 beds, which will allow for up to 12 players. With this option, and you can actually do this with a single bedroom as well, you want to place the storage for them in this half-height shelf. What this also allows is for you to potentially store loot here during an online raid. It wouldn't be well protected per se, but the thing is, no raider will be able to destroy all of your honeycomb around this base. The refineries. These are very useful and should always be placed indoors when possible. In the peak downs, you can pretty much place these anywhere. Personally, I like them in a square just so that you could pass by with no problem. You could fit 12 in here and still be able to walk around. I've upgraded the middle circle to sheet metal, and our next step is to start covering as many of these gaps as possible. To do this, we'll start next to the exit and use the following build order. We need to build 4 window frames and then 1 wall frame. Then 4 more window frames and another wall frame. Repeat this and it will be perfect. Now we need a way up to our final floor, which we can actually use this exit to line it up with. We can walk in a straight line coming out of the exit until this triangle, and then build a normal elevator. Next we need to build up some extra wall frames around in a circle. This is straight up for stability reasons, especially if you want to have windmills on the ceiling. We start at either of the doors and build around like this. Now for the ceiling. I like to start once again at the door and fill in around the edge first. Once it looks like this, we could fill in the center part. Now all of this is in the middle TC, so there is no gaps here. To finish this installment, all of the wall frames will get garage doors, and all of the window frames get reinforced glass windows. I'll admit, there is something very satisfying about these high-speed noises. Either way, when it's done, it should look exactly like this. Next, we'll build our inner peak downs. So starting from our 3rd floor, we left a garage door here earlier. The first step is to add a square to each of these sections to give us some more walking around room. To get the right gaps in the right spots, you want all the triangles to be attached to the outer TCs in the same fashion we just did the ceiling. One final thing we need to do on this floor is add 1 stone layer of honeycomb. We can do this on every single triangle that is sheet metal. With adding the floors above us, it is now necessary to add this protection. Once you're back at the 3rd floor entrance, it is finished. Now for the defense floor, which looks complicated at first, but it's really not, if you look at it the right way. If you think of all the spikes on each of the section facing their external TC, the pattern becomes very easy. Here is an aerial view, just in case you want to go about it by looking at this. For the first defense floor element, we want to come out of our exit and go to the left. Out and to the left is very important. Locate the first gap you see like this. We want a door frame on each one of these with a door that opens to the right. This will seal the roof from raiders in the finished base. Next, you want to walk around and add a frame to every gap that you see like this. Now the base should look exactly like this. The next element we want to add will be the window frames to the outer edge. We want to go back to the roof and add a frame to every outermost edge. Pretty much place them wherever they fit. Once you complete that, it should look like this. And this is honestly one massive roof. We do have one final step here though, and that is adding in frames for stability. We want to add these to where the floor tiles don't hang over the edge of the base, if that makes sense. If you're wondering why I keep fast forwarding, all of these tasks are very repetitive since the base is so big, and once you understand where the pieces have to go, which is quite easy, you should be able to build it with no problem. The final steps are covering all the stuff we just built, which we will need roof access to do. So let's quick build up this elevator. The easiest way to do this is to jump on over and start adding the triangles in the correct spots. Now when you do this, you once again want all the gaps from underneath to line up exactly. Now this last part is a little more complicated. So what we'll do is we'll add on to the outer TCs first and then the middle one last. Build the following things in the following spots. Once you get to this gap, it is rinse and repeat. The final part of this roof, we need to make sure the gaps are all consistent. This is actually exactly the same as the inner peak downs. On the first one, we want the gap through the middle like this, and then the second one should have gaps on the sides. Now our roof is very wide and very massive. It is almost done, but we have just one more section to raise up one more level, with the idea of getting rid of some of the gaps on top. So wherever there is a wide gap like this, you want to put 2 wall frames around it. There should be a total of 6 up here. Next we can fill in wall frames pointing in and running along these sideways gaps. Above this triangle and facing the center base, we can now add in the elevator top. We want to build the same thing in a symmetric spot up here, so with our back to the door, we can locate this triangle and build the way up. You also want to upgrade this one to sheet metal so that raiders don't have a cheaper way to get through here from the top down. Here is a top-down view if you want to check your placements. Now I noticed there are lots of really cool shapes in multi-TC bases, which is pretty cool. For the final time here, we'll add in wall frames, the same as the floor below. This is once again for the roof stability. To secure this, all of the frames that have the wide gap through the middle will get garage doors, and the rest will get shop fronts. What we're actually doing here is eliminating gaps, floor by floor, that raiders can use to their advantage. Once you cover all that with a roof, it should look like this. Our final step will be adding slanted roofs for cover when landing helis and adding all the general angles. The first 2 roof tiles go on either side of the wide gaps like this. Repeat this for all the wide gaps. The next 2 roofs go in between each of the 2 roofs that you just built. Once again, repeat this for all the sides. When it's done, there should be only 1 gap in between each section. This is the easiest placement by far. Stand on either side and simply add them in one at a time. And our roof is done. What a massive structure it is. If you want to add the windmills to the top, there are 6 spots that you can do. If you're looking between the garage doors like this, the spot above the right-hand shop front is where the frames can be built up. There will be a total of 6 places for raised windmills, which should be enough for this base, and actually any other base pretty much. And that is pretty much the base. This is the first huge base like this on my channel, so I know I need to work on the format a little bit, but either way, I hope you enjoyed the build. It is super strong at the end of the day. If you have anything to add, like always, you can come to my Discord, link in the description by the way, or in the comments below. See you in the next video.